Hi, Cheryl from Garden in the Burrow. Today we worked outside doing a ton of pruning in this shrub border that is in what we call the dogs area, the dogs garden. So this area is fenced in where the dogs get let out and have some free play time. And so it's mostly woody plants in here, so they can't do too much damage. And while we were pruning, I noticed that this shrub that's right next to me had just started to come into bloom. And this is the first week of August. And this is called CLETHRA ALNIFOLIA. And its common names are, I think, Summersweet and sweet pepper bush. And this shrub is, in a word, amazing. There are two growing in here, two different varieties. This one right next to me is just the straight species, our native CLETHRA ALNIFOLIA. And next to me, and I'm going to have Bill pan in a minute, but not yet, to a pink variety called Ruby Spice, and they're both growing in this garden, and they're growing as a suckering shrub. So they're coming up in between a lot of the other woody plants in here. And this shrub is native to the eastern seaboard of the United States. So if you come down the whole eastern seaboard and then sort of hook west at Tennessee and into Texas, you'll find this shrub growing. And what is great about this shrub are many things, but first of all is where you can grow it. So the checklist of the kind of conditions you can have to grow this shrub in is long. If you have sandy soil, you can grow this shrub. If you have wet, boggy soil, you can grow this shrub. If you have full sun, I'm standing in an area of full sun, you can grow this shrub. If you have heavy shade, you can grow this shrub. And not only can you grow it, but it will bloom in full shade. And we'll see some of that in a minute over on the other side of this garden that is in full shade. If you live on the seashore and you have dunes, you can grow this shrub. If you have salt in the air from living near a coast, you can also grow this shrub. It is tolerant to just about anything. And this is a favorite of hummingbirds. It's a favorite of bees and all sorts of wasps. And that's why I wanted to get out here and do this video today, because even behind me, I can hear them all on the flowers that are fully open. The ones near me are just starting to open. Once this thing fully opens, it will be so loud over here with all the buzzing, and you'll see hummingbirds coming in. And this shrub also has a great fall color. It turns very bright yellow in the fall. And when Bill comes in to look at the flowers, I'll show you also the seed heads from last year. The birds eat the seeds in autumn. So when the leaves kind of turn that yellow color, that's when the birds know that the seeds are ripe, and they'll swoop in and eat all the seeds. But the seed pods stay present. I don't prune them off. You can if you want to, if you want them to be really neat, but I just leave them. This shrub blooms on new wood, so you can prune it back in the springtime if it's gotten too tall, and then it will still flower. This shrub can be anywhere depending on the cultivar. There are dwarf cultivars that get 2 to 3 feet tall. Hummingbird is a white one that is dwarf and only grows to about that height. And then you can have, this one will get maybe 4 or 5 feet tall. And also, I'm going to point over there, almost hit a bee. And you can see there are pieces in here that are taller than me. So it just depends on where it's growing, how tall it can get. Very, very deer resistant. The first time I saw this shrub, I was actually on a garden tour, and we were at a lakeside garden, and the gentleman who was the gardener there had used it as a hedge down near the lake where it was very wet, and it was amazing. And what, not only the foliage and the shrub and how it had formed a beautiful colony and sort of spread out on its own, but what hits you first if you are in a garden where it's blooming is the fragrance. This is planted very near, if I look straight ahead, I'm looking at our porch where we sit for coffee in the morning and cereal. And this you can smell from there. It is, how many feet do you think it is from there, Bill? Do you think 20, 25 feet? So this will fragrance this whole entire garden, and you'll be able to smell it down on the road and up near on our porch. So a fantastic, fantastic native shrub, useful in so many different garden situations. In this garden, and what you're going to see now, well, first we'll look at the flowers, and then I'll show you how I've let it colonize, which is a great application if you have an area that you need a lot of plants. But you can also find varieties that don't colonize readily, or you can cut the suckers out as they come up and keep it contained in its own place. So now I'm going to stop rattling on about how wonderful it is, and I'm going to have Bill come in and look at some of the flowers that are just starting to open, being really careful of the many bees that are on it. So some of the ones that are nearer here are more fully open. And let's see if we can find a seed pod. Oof, without getting stung. So that's one of last year's seed pods, and there's no seeds left in it. The birds eat them. And now if you look over behind the holly, you'll be able to see some of the red ruby spice one. And that actually has, to my eye, a little bit darker of a leaf. And when those flowers open, even though they look pretty red right now, they'll open and they'll be pink. All right, now we're going to walk along this garden, and I'm going to show you, starting here, this is where the original CLETHRA Summersweet was planted. And that was the white one, that's the species. And here you'll see the ruby spice, and you can see it's growing up into the holly back there. There are some pieces that are way over my head. And you can see that it's suckering all in on the bottom here. And we're going to loop through this garden. We did some pruning in here today. We cleared an area in here. We cut these azaleas, and there's a big lilac in here that needed some pruning. I don't recommend pruning in August. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do, and this is when we had time, and these shrubs were way overdue for rejuvenation. So we took quite a bit off this azalea and off a lilac and a fragrant honeysuckle and a spice bush back there. So we kind of cleared this area, but we'll come in here under the Seven Suns flower, and you'll be able to see a colony of this that's very low growing. Oh, sorry, my camera got a little jolty there for a second. I apologize. But you can see it's all colonized underneath this tree. And then you can see this is standing eye to eye with me right here. This is flowers of the ruby spice. So depending on where you cut it back to is how big it will be if you let it colonize. Again, we're getting a little jolty with the camera here. All right, so I'm going to turn the camera off so we can get to the shady part of this garden, because this is in some shade here, but you'll see in a second the full shade that the other side of this plant is in. All right, so now I'm standing on the end of the garden that I started in, and I'm probably about maybe 15 feet away from where this was originally planted. This is ruby spice, and I'm standing in the shade of a linden tree, a river birch, and a blue spruce. So this is in considerable shade. At my feet are shade plants like hydrangea in the front, and geranium macrorhizum also on the ground as ground covers. So this is in some pretty good shade, and you can see how tall this plant is. It's over, well, just about my height, and I'm 5'10". And the best thing about this in the shade is look at all these flower clusters. So every one of these is going to open probably within the week. So not many shrubs bloom in shade. And also not many shrubs bloom this late in the season. So we're talking about an August through September bloomer that blooms in the shade, that has this beautiful glossy foliage that just stands out so well in a shady garden, and you'll have all sorts of pollinators on this very soon. So if you don't mind letting it sucker out, you can get a lot of bang for your buck with just a couple of plants by planting this in any garden. It will sucker out because it doesn't mind the conditions. It's not going to stop when it gets to shade or stop when it gets to sun. So I'm going to take the camera and go in and show you up close a little bit more some of the blooms and some of the foliage. And then I'm going to just quickly go over to the new garden that we were working on yesterday to give you a little update. Okay. All right, so we're starting down this end where we were doing lots of pruning, and that is the ruby spice that I was just standing next to. And you can see all in here where we've let this happen. We've let it colonize everywhere. I will tell you that it is really, really easy to stop it from doing so if you want to. But we just let it because it's a beautiful plant, easy to take care of. That's the lilac we pruned this morning and the azalea we pruned this morning. But look at, as we come down from that and we go from shade into full sun area of the garden. This area, no cover, full sun all the time, and really dry. And that's where the species is blooming. And you can see, again, how far it's spread out in here. Now, if we had wanted to tame this, we certainly could have. We certainly could have just any time it started suckering. Oh, look at that. Bird bath needs a cleaning. We sure could have stopped it from spreading. This shrub has been planted, these two shrubs, I should say, got planted in 2010. So this is 15 years of growth and just, again, an amazing, amazing plant. So I'm going to spin around quickly and show you, we had started this project yesterday and we cleared out these beds and widened them and lengthened that walkway and started doing some transplanting. And all the chipping that we did this morning of the azaleas and the lilacs and the shrubs in there that we were rejuvenating are all what is making the mulch right here. It looks very light and fresh right now. It will darken over the next few days. And we started doing some planting. That's rabbit protection on that little bowling ball arborvitae. So that's the project we were working on yesterday. So I'll swing back into this garden so you can see how open we've made it. So now I can see my Seven Suns flower tree. I wanted to be able to see that exfoliating bark, and it was being hidden by some of the shrubs in here. And I'm going to keep the Summersweet that's in there pruned very low, so it will just flower inches from the ground instead of feet from the ground. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed learning about Summersweet. I hope that you want to plant Summersweet somewhere. I hope that you have an application that you were looking for the perfect thing to plant, and maybe it's this plant. Happy gardening.